Frankie Vittorini from U Stadium is live from the NFL Combine, and I'm Ryan Sampson. We're here to talk about the New York Jets as always. Frankie, how you doing, man?
Ryan, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I saw that you were in Aruba. I'm very jealous. It's one of my favorite places to visit. So I'm sad that you have to be back in New York. So it
Yeah,
is what it is.
it is what it is, but I appreciate you, man. It was a great time. Aruba was amazing, and it was nice to get away for a little bit, especially after the NFL season finishes up. But as always, the NFL continues to give us storylines, especially our beloved New York Jets. So let's start with what happened this week. Joe Douglas spoke, obviously, after we heard comments about Mecole Hardman, Deion Dawkins. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to start with Joe Douglas and what he had to say to the press and the media. In a very short 12-minute press conference with the media, Douglas wasn't exactly, I would say, enthusiastic from what he was saying, but he was asked about the offensive line, the three starters he needs to replace. He was asked about the Zach Wilson, his situation, and he's granted permission to seek a trade. So I just want to start with you, Frankie, and what you took away from what Joe Douglas had to say in front of the media for the first time since really the season had ended.
Yeah, man. So what I basically got from what Joe D said was they are trying to keep a lot of things hush. They are not too confident in what their approach is at this moment. They want to support Robert Saleh and not have anything else sort of leak publicly, although we had so many things leaking privately. So I think that Woody Johnson had a conversation with Joe Douglas and said, "Hey, man, when you get to the combine, shut it up. Don't say too much. Back up our head coach and really not giving the fans or giving media out here really anything to work with. I mean, I wish he would have came out and just said, "Listen, we're trying our best. We know that this offense is struggling. We will do whatever we can to make this offense a top 15 unit in the NFL. We have Aaron coming back. Everyone, in the words of Aaron, just relax. We're going to do what we can." We didn't hear any of that. We heard a bunch of hosh posh. We heard the Jets might you know, do something with the Mecole Hardman grievance. We heard that they need to do something. We heard that Robert Saleh is the guy and he works with him and he's confident in his approach. The same crap we've been hearing for the last couple months. It's got to stop. I'm not confident in what they're doing. And Joe Douglas seemed pretty defeated to me. So I'm not optimistic at all about what this team is going to do next season. I hope I'm wrong. But as it stands at this moment, man, it just seems like the Jets are just like a defeated team, a defeated organization that feels like everyone's against them and they're just battered at this point and they don't really know what to do. So not to be super negative and start off our show with that,
No,
but I'm not feeling it, dude. I'm just not feeling the
I'll,
vibes.
I'll tell you what, man. I had the same feeling after the presser. I was gonna honestly say the same thing. I don't feel confident compared to the previous off seasons with where the team is going in direction wise. I know it's probably a lot to do with the influence of what stories have been leaked and how much we've heard of the dysfunction going on, and it listen, I think Frankie, as Jets fans, we know the team has had a ton of dysfunction. It's not been running great. We know that. We know we have the longest playoff drought in NFL history. I think the sad part is that when you start seeing more than just the media write about these leaks and you hear players give anecdotes of what's going on behind the scenes as well, like a Mecole Hardman, it just confirms everything that we kind of thought about this franchise and how it's being run. It's sad. It really is because it kind of gives you, like you said, where's the hope? Where are we going from here at this point? How are we going to attack the offseason? And just from Joe Douglas's, it was very subdued, I would say, the way he spoke to the media and the way that he was giving off the impression. And I feel confident in what we have. We had good team meetings. We had good personnel meetings. I mean, how come never once you were asked about the firing of your assistant GM in Rex Hogan? Where was that? There was no peppering of questions there, and his reaction on that. Your reaction to the leaked media stories of the dysfunction your head coach has, your offensive staff has, how many changes you put on your offensive staff. You didn't explain any of that. So I think those things were a little alarming to me and if for me as a Jets fan, like you and I agree with you, I feel the same way. I don't feel confident going into the next season. No matter what kind of moves we make, it just feels like we're going to be at the same point next year and we kind of know what's going to happen. I think me and you can sense where this season's going, even though we're so far away from everything. I think a lot of Jets fans have this. Here we go again. We're about to embark on another dysfunctional season because we just don't know if we have the right people in charge at GM and a head coach.
Yeah, and what a lot of people here are saying at the combine is, where is Robert Saleh? Why didn't Robert Saleh choose to come here and just meet the players in person? As you know, when you meet someone in person, you get a better sense of who they are than if you're going to do a Zoom meeting or go through tape and have a phone call with the prospect at hand. Why isn't Robert Saleh here? Now he is coming
Now
here
he's coming, yeah.
tomorrow. He'll be at the combine. But again, that was a pressure move. That was something that I think either Woody Johnson or someone up top said to him, "Hey man, get your ass to the combine, start meeting some of these players on Saturday and Sunday, even if it's just purely from an optics perspective." But that's the problem with this team. They've been trying to hide. They haven't stood front and center and they haven't been honest. Just be honest. We will forgive you in New York. But when you're not honest and you hide from us, then we give you nothing back. You get no favors from us. So we want to see Robert Saleh here. We wanted to see him here a few days ago. Why is he coming on Saturday? Because he was forced to. Joe Douglas comes here and just kind of went through the motions. And then they're meeting with quarterbacks, which is another interesting thing. I mean, you're meeting with Caleb Williams, you're meeting with Jaden Daniels. I mean, what's going on? Are the Jets looking at quarterback?
Due
Maybe.
diligence is that button meme. Due diligence.
Due diligence, you're spending time on players that what are they realistically going to be an option for us?
No,
Why
not at
don't you
all.
spend that time on another player that maybe is realistic? So, but maybe it is really due diligence because maybe the Jets are looking to, shake some things up in that top 10, although I don't see where that makes any sense or how Aaron would sign off on
Yeah.
that. But again, really nothing with this team makes sense at this point. So I don't really know how to take it. I just kind of go with the flow and just give my opinions as you do, Ryan. And we just, are looking at this from
Right.
a media perspective and we just kind of give our take and that's about it. What else
Yeah,
can we do?
I think before we deep dive into the Mecole Hardman and Deion Dawkins comments about culture and everything else, for Joe Douglas, the task that he has at hand, let's go over that real quick here, Frankie. What the Jets really need this offseason. 3 new offensive linemen. It's hard enough to replace one offensive lineman as a starter. You need 3. And not to mention the fact your stud tackle slash guard that you mentioned in your presser about how flexible AVT is and the how you're going to have the opportunity to be flexible with the offseason and free agency, trade, or draft to address the offensive line issues. That guy's coming off his second major injury and surgery in AVT from the torn Achilles. So, Frankie, is it a written and should we write it down in pencil? Should we write it down in pen? Are the Jets, no matter what, going to take an offensive tackle at 10, no matter what? Even if Brock Bowers is floating out there, and even if like one of those talented wide receivers somehow slips to 10.
I think they are. My fear is if Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt get selected before 10, I'm pretty certain that Joe Alt will. Not completely sold that Fashanu will. I'm concerned that if both of those go in the top 10, then we're left with, in my opinion, who'd be the next best selection is JC Latham, who honestly I'd be fine with taking him at 10. My fear is though they're not going to take someone like JC Latham. They may take Fuaga, they may take Guyton, or if you want to really get risky with it, because we all know that Joe Douglas loves his RAS rating for players is Amarius Mims out of Georgia, who reminds me a lot of Mekhi Becton coming out of college. So I'm worried that if Alt and Fashanu go in the top 10 and then we're sitting there at 10, I'm fine with Latham. It's a little bit of a stretch, a little bit, maybe 5 or 6,
Stud
7
right
picks
tackle at
removed.
Alabama who'd fill a position of need.
Definitely. And I think, honestly, I think he could even be a better guard. I think JC Latham, if you look at the way that he positions his body and how stout he is and how much strength he has, and he doesn't overly set, he's just a stout player. I think guard would even be better for him because when you're playing tackle, you kind of have to elongate yourself a bit to get in your sets. He's just a stout up front kind of guy. So I feel like he could even be a great guard. So if you have him coming back with us bringing AVT back, I think you could mix and match some things and make it work. But yeah, I'm scared that we're going to take Fuaga if those two go,
So you don't
and we're
like
not going to take
Fuaga.
Latham. I'm not a big fan. I think it's a stretch. I think he's got slow feet. I think he does make some he is a mauler in some ways, but that stuff doesn't get me excited. Just because someone's off balance and you, like, jump on them after you pancake them really doesn't make me feel like you're any better of a prospect than somebody else, to be honest. I loved Rashawn Slater coming out of college. He wasn't, like, the nastiest, tackle in the world. So, I just don't like Fuaga as much as I do Latham. And obviously the two top guys, and Alton Fashanu, because his feet. He's a little slow to me, doesn't have that lateral movement, gets moved around in pass pro a bit, and I feel like he depends too much on his strength to properly set and establish a pass block than he does his technique or his body position. I like stout guys. I like rocks out there, walls. And he's not. He just depends on engaging the edge rusher and trying to move him around. But in the NFL, the best edges will use your body against you and use you trying to over, set or over, do a side. So um I'm worried about that. I think if Alton Fashanu were gone and we don't want Latham, I think they have to look at the tight end and Brock Bowers, who measured in today at 6'3", which a lot of people were concerned he might be closer to like 6'1", 6'2". But yeah, I would like Bowers, but if he's off the board, yeah, it looks like it's a Fuaga or maybe this tackle out of Oklahoma, Guyton, or
Yeah.
or Mims.
Yeah, I think for me, I wouldn't be okay. I'd be fine with Fuaga. I mean, no matter what, they need an offensive tackle. They need to take someone there at 10, in my opinion. I just don't think I can stomach taking a tight end top 10, to be honest with you. It's unusual and it doesn't make sense for what the needs are this team is. But the thing that we have to now discuss is you still have free agency before the draft, so that should help you a little bit more in understanding of where you're, drafting for need. So I think, and maybe I'm wrong here, when you look at this free agency class upcoming, it's strong at guard and it's deep at guard position, and you can sign two starting guards, possibly even three for depth. And if you wanted to move Vera Tucker to right tackle for this entire upcoming season, because that was one thing Joe Douglas mentioned, we want to keep Vera Tucker at one position. If you keep him at right tackle and then you sign two stud guards, you got to draft a tackle. He can play left or right, or he can move Vera Tucker to left as well. But I think that might be the best course of action for this Jets franchise moving forward into next season in order to protect Aaron Rodgers and build that wall. Build in through free agency and then use that draft position to get that tackle, that rookie tackle that you're going to have to develop and hopefully make an impact here next season.
Yeah, that is a great plan to me. I agree with you. I do. The problem is, are we going to be able to sign one or two of these guards in free agency? Are
Well,
we
the
going to be able
cap
to
went up a
sign
ton.
Robert
The
Hunt?
cap went up a ton.
But other teams, I
I
mean, we
know.
do this a lot. We always do this. Not saying you and I, but fans in general, we always look at free agency and say, "Oh, that guy would be perfect on our team." Well, there's probably 10 other teams thinking the same thing. So, I'm worried that we might not get one of these guards that are, highly touted. And you're right, there is a great interior offensive line free agency class. The problem is, I don't know if we're going to be able to get even one of these guys. If we
Yeah.
are, then things start shaping out a little bit better. Then I would be more comfortable with, let's say, going with, Tyrese Fuaga. But the problem there is when you take a right tackle that's only a right tackle that could potentially not be a great right tackle, you still got to fix the left side, and the left side's more important than the right side. So
Yeah, it's a tough again. It's going to be the most difficult and challenging part of this offseason for Joe Douglas is how he's going to attack this offensive line. There are, like he said, there are multiple ways to attack it, but what I'll be interested to see where I think they're going to go hard after the guard market, and then they're going to use the tackle position at 10. I think that's their solve, and I think Vera Tucker will be the starting either left or right tackle next season, and I think that's what they're going to rely on.
that's
Um,
the rumors out of the combine. They're
yeah,
saying that it's pretty established, not established, but it could be established that the Jets have made a decision in house that they will put AVT at tackle so that they can do exactly what you're saying and address guard and free agency. And that just alleviates some of the pressures of them having a draft offensive lineman because the Jets don't have just holes on the offensive line. The Jets have to address receiver and the Jets need a safety and they want another tackle, defensive tackle, I'm saying. So And we need maybe even a linebacker at some point. I mean, CJ is getting old, man. You want some guys with speed. We saw speed kills us across the middle. You saw what David Njoku did against us. We can't have that again. Especially now with the way tight ends are developing and the way offenses now are just they're on the speed track, man. So we got some holes to fill. So yeah, I agree there that if we can crush the guard market or at least get one, then we can start playing around with things with AVT coming back. So I agree there.
Yeah, it's I'm fascinated again to see how that plays out. The other thing I think we want to talk about before again we get into I want to save the Hardman stuff to the end. The other thing I want to talk about is Zach Wilson. Joe Douglas said him and his free agent are allowed to seek out a trade. I talked to Brian Costello earlier this week about this. Frankie, what's your sense here? Are the Jets actually going to be able to find a trade partner for Zach Wilson, or are we going to drag this thing out and ultimately say we'll cut bait probably in the summer?
The problem with Zach Wilson is his cap hit for a team that would trade for him. So you're gonna have to pay him 10 million plus dollars against the cap for 2025 or 2024, excuse me. And then you have your option, obviously. So, he's going to count for 11.1 million against the cap in 2024. Then you have your option. If you exercise that option, you pay him 22 million. So you'd have to basically trade for Zach Wilson, pay him 11.1 against your cap, and then you have a decision whether you extend him or you exercise his option or you leave him as a free agent. But why would you bring him in and pay him 11 for what? To be a backup? You're
Yeah,
not going to develop him in 1 year. So they're saying that the Jets may need to attach certain things, certain picks, certain conditional
that's where it
draft
gets messy.
assets, yes, for a team to take on Zach Wilson's contract. So, dude, this kid's been a mess since he got here for us. I blame him 75% of it, and I blame us the other 25%. But this is a lingering thing that we just cannot get off of. And the sooner I think we do it, the better. Take the L. We already took enough L's literally in the win loss column because this freaking kid's starting. We got to move on. I don't know what he did in the locker room. I'm sure things are going to come out about certain things he was saying, him not wanting to play. And then you heard what Mecole Hardman was saying, how he's like, I'm not going to return punts. He's like, you don't want me to because I'll drop him if you put me back there. I mean, what was going on in that locker room with some of these guys? I'm sure they were talking things about the coaching staff and the ownership and whatnot. So I'm curious to see what happens, but the sooner we can get rid of Zach, man, the better. But it's not going to be easy. It's not like we thought maybe, oh, we're going to get a fifth round pick for him with, that can move up to a fourth under certain conditions. That doesn't seem like it's going to be the case due to the money.
Yeah, it's like you said, admit the L, take the L.
Yeah, we already did.
Probably, they gotta release him. I don't think they're gonna find a trade partner. I just think it's very difficult that people are gonna, like you said, the contract is the big part right there that I don't think a team is gonna want to bring on, especially for it. I don't know if he's a backup quarterback. He's probably a developmental, like sit him third as, or maybe even a practice squad quarterback for a little bit, learn the offense. It's a difficult situation for him and for Joe Douglas. All right, Frankie, let's get into the Mecole Hardman stuff. So Mecole Hardman and Deion Dawkins both had some pretty tough comments and pretty rough comments on the Jets franchise. We'll start with Deion Dawkins real quick. He went on the podcast Vlad
Oh, I'm
TV.
going to do this for Deion Dawkins. Hold
Yeah,
on.
no. Don't do that. Don't do that. We don't need to
What
do
would you
that.
do if I did that?
Oh my
I'm all
God.
tatted
No,
up.
you know what?
Yo, what's up?
Listen, I love the fact that Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson were blasting him on social media. Like, oh, I'll take my shirt off and start speaking. Like it's very funny. But he says that he finds a bunch of goofy people on the defense. They're more worried about the photos they post on social media than football, which is hilarious coming from a guy who's not wearing a shirt while on podcast doing the new media of players, being able to speak their mind. I don't know, Frankie. He talked about culture. He blasted that. He blasted the coaching staff. So that was one thing. And then you got Mecole Hardman going on the Pivot podcast, which I respect because I love Ryan Clark. I worked with him at ESPN. He was awesome, and I really like that podcast that they do. But Mecole Hardman, is there any reason for you to even open your mouth about the New York Jets? I know they asked about what went wrong there, but you could have taken the high road. You're already caught the game winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. You won your third Super Bowl. The Jets traded it to the Chiefs. They gave you that out. It wasn't working for you here. Xavier Gibson did find a role here on this offense. He did take your job really as a punt returner and that fourth, fifth receiver spot. I don't know, Frankie. For me, I've talked to former players like Brandon London, who I work with at the Post, and he was defending Mecole, and he's like, the Jets are a dysfunctional mess. And I'm like, we already knew that. We knew that. Like, you don't have to address it
Yeah.
again. It's an easy target, in my opinion, if you really want to keep hammering the Jets, because those clips are going to go viral and you're going to get clicks and you're going to be talked about just like we are right now. But at the end of the day, though, you didn't take you kind of open your mouth too much to the point now you're going to be under league investigation because the Jets are like, "Oop, you probably spoke a little too much when you said you told the team, you told the Chiefs, come get me, come trade for me." Like that, that's not smart. And then the other part is you see Sauce Gardner and other players like Kenny Yeboah say, "Oh, we know about you leaking game plans to the Eagles and the Chiefs before we played them." I don't know, Frankie. I mean, this is a mess from start to finish. To be honest with you, how are you sensing from what Mecole Hardman had to say about the Jets?
All right. So did you hear what McCole said about himself in that interview with the Pivot podcast? He referred to himself as a star. He goes, "You got your star back there." Star. When the hell were you ever a star in this league? He's lucky. He's one of the luckiest players in the last 15 years because he's won 3 Super Bowls. Mecole Hardman is not a great football player, and I'm questioning his character. Now you combine that, a guy who thinks he's a star, who's not a great football player, he might not even be a good wide receiver, honestly, with a team that's as dysfunctional as the Jets. And combine those 2 things together, and you get what you get. You get someone leaking things, you get someone talking out of character or talking in character in a wild way about the team. You get just a combustion of BS, which is what it is when Mecole Hardman is talking about the Jets. And yeah, there was probably some truth to what he was saying, but I also know the special teams coordinator that he blasted has been on the Jets for a long time, and we had a pretty
Brant
good
Boyer,
special
yeah.
teams last year with Brant Boyer. So I don't know where he's coming from. Sorry, dude, you're not as good as you think you are, and now you're on your high horse because you caught a pass in the Super Bowl to win the game. Like, congratulations. I don't know. I don't know what is the next thing for the Jets to do in terms of this tampering investigation. If it was me, I would probably just cut it. You have too many things to worry about than a tampering charge that may, dox a pick from the Chiefs. If it's really that legit that he was leaking game plans, that's another story, I would say.
Yeah.
That's something you really want to look into. I don't think him contacting Mahomes and Veach is something that is actually something you want to spend time on. But the leaked game plan stuff, I think, is definitely something you want to look into. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised on all counts, I guess. Everyone's guilty on all counts. So, um, the Jets, man, we need to start running a tighter ship. I said this to you. I've been saying
We've been
this for
saying this
months now.
forever.
We've been saying this, I think, since our first show together, 3 months ago?
Yeah.
Run a tighter ship because anyone that's here that ends up leaving has a million and one things to say. And if you don't understand how to not burn bridges when you let disgruntled players and employees go, you're really setting yourself up to fail because other players and other coaches are going to see all this and not want to come here. It is not only a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing when it comes to attracting people to want to come into the New York Jets organization. The ship is completely um just it's a wreck. It's a sinking ship. It's a freaking Titanic, the New York Jets, and people are jumping off like Mecole Hardman. And as they're jumping off, they're telling everyone and their mother about how shitty it was to be there. Robert Sala's gotta tighten up this year big time. And the number one thing I wanted him to do was get his ass here at the combine and address all this stuff and say, listen, I understand we did not perform at where we wanted to last year. Aaron going down was very detrimental to every aspect of this team. It was deflating. We needed to put together better offensive game plans. I understand this, and we will do it this year. We're going to keep our defense top 5, and we will do whatever we can to make sure the offense is going to be a unit to reckon with in 2024 and beyond. Look out for us. The Jets are coming. Something like that. That's what we want to hear. There's a reason we liked Rex Ryan. Robert Saleh should learn from past coaches that have been successful in New York. Rex Ryan, Bill Parcells, to an extent, Mangini. Look at what these guys have done and mimic some of their strategies, mimic some of the stuff that they say. No, it's all good. It's all good. Overreaction. The media sucks. But yeah, you say that to your players, but then when your players leave, they blast you publicly, right? So you're so cool with everyone, but then they're not so cool with you, Robert. Are they? Everyone who
I
leaves, every coach, 30 sources. We got 30 sources from the Athletic. 30. I've never heard 30 sources in my life. I didn't even know you could get 30
yeah.
sources.
I
And you're not here addressing, put your ass on the front line and say something confidently. Can you do that? Can you give us some hope?
I don't know. I don't know, Frankie. I think Robert Sala, I like the person. I really do. I just the coach I question. And I think for
You
him,
should.
well, I think he truly wanted to and this is going to sound he wanted to believe in Zach Wilson when they first drafted him, and that backfired tremendously. And then the owner steps in when he shouldn't have, but he did, and forced his hand in firing his best friend in Matt LaFleur or Mike LaFleur and say, we gotta let you go. Our offense isn't working. This isn't working. Our quarterback isn't developing our top QB. We gotta let him go. And then you bring in, without a doubt, the worst name at offensive coordinator because you were going full bore for Aaron Rodgers and saying we're going to bring in your best friend that's going to be your OC. And I think Saleh, I think, feels a little like this isn't my plan here a little bit, like with the
Of
offense and
course.
the dysfunction. Look at the defense, how well it's been playing and how well we run that unit. But you're the head coach. You run. It's the same thing that happened to Bill Belichick right now. He got ran out of New England because look how mismanaged that offense was. You brought in a special teams coach and a former defensive coordinator to run your offense for your top quarterback draft pick, and it burnt you. And we thought you were never going to get fired. He got fired. Like, let's be real. He got fired in New England because he mismanaged the
Yeah.
offense. And I think that's what's happening right now. Robert Saleh is that they forced his hand a little bit and saying you got to hire Nathaniel Hackett as your offensive coordinator, and because we're getting Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to solve the offensive side of the ball. Little did, or I guess not little did, I think they knew what they were signing up for with Nathaniel Hackett, though, and that's what Mecole Hardman kind of pointed to a little bit again is when Rodgers went down, that was it. Everyone threw their hands up and said, what are we going to do the rest of the season? We're screwed. And Aaron runs the offense, and Aaron tells everyone what to do. Nathaniel Hackett, what are you doing? What are you coaching? And then when you hear stories about how coaches aren't meeting with players and giving them game plans until literally the day before the game or the day of the game, saying you're gonna punt return today, you're gonna do this today. It's like, what? We had all week to game plan. Where's this been all week? The communication. That's concerning. That's a problem. And I think that's kind of what Woody Johnson was trying to allude to at the end of the season as end of season presser, saying, I think for Robert, he's going to be more involved with the offense, and I think that was a lot of people took it the
Yes.
wrong way. Like, you know what I mean? They said like, oh, what the heck is Robert Sala going to do with the offense? It's like, no, Robert Sala needs to recognize his offensive coordinator that he hired is not a great communicator. He's not good at coaching. Let's be
Exactly.
honest. We need to help him, and we need to support this OC that's probably a little overwhelmed right now. And what we need you to do as the head coach is be a good communicator, get those game plans set with Aaron and communicate that to the rest of your offensive staff. Because again, you look at your big name players like a Garrett Wilson, even the high price free agent Alan Lazard, both said the same thing at the end of the season too. They said we want to be coached more. We want our offense to be coached better. So everything in everyone's saying the same thing. It's all going to the same person, Nathaniel Hackett. I just don't think he's a good OC. He's not a good coach. He doesn't belong in the NFL. He doesn't belong on the Jets franchise. He doesn't belong as a coordinator. Aaron is the OC. We all know that. And as much as Aaron Rodgers might hate hearing that and defend Hackett to the death, hey, that's your buddy. Do what you got to do, man. Like, I hear you. You won your MVPs, but let's be real. You look at what Green Bay did with Jordan Love this past season. It looked pretty dang good. And I'm not denying Aaron Rodgers is all time great. He's probably the most talented quarterback I've ever seen in my life. But you did win back-to-back MVPs with LaFleur as your head coach, who was really calling the plays. Hackett was running the red zone or the gold zone, they call it. So I think that's where we're kind of at right now with this Jets. They're trying to support that offense. They've made a ton of changes on the offensive staff. I think they're hoping these guys can help communicate better the players, the game plan, and all that. But it's like you said, it's that feeling of, oh boy, Oh boy, I don't know. Like we kind of know where this is going right now, and it's not good. And we don't feel confident about it at all.
Hardman said one thing that was very true and very telling about this Jets coaching staff. When Aaron went down, they did virtually nothing to tailor game plans around Zach Wilson. Whereas he compared it to in Kansas City when Mahomes went down, how Chad Henne came in and went
Yep.
3-1, and they won a playoff game with more or whatever. The Jets did not do that for Zach. They literally said, well, Rodgers was running his offense this way. Thus, we'll just run the same offense with Zach. That's laziness. That's my next point. It's a lazy coaching staff. I don't think they work as hard as other coaching staffs. I don't think they put in as much time going through film as other coaching staffs. And I think it's totally uh you see it. You see it on Sundays. It's what
It's
you
an
see.
indictment on Salah. It's
Yeah,
a total
exactly.
indictment
It's a
on Salah.
total indictment. That's the word. You're better with vocab than me, Ryan. That's why I work with you. But no, seriously, it's so freaking true, man. Why isn't he here? Now he's coming on Sat. Everyone leaves on Saturday
I know
here.
it was a tough.
Everyone's leaving.
It
We're
was a tough
staying,
look.
but
I know.
everyone's leaving. I mean, you know, it's trying to tell the world. They're trying to tell the world that there's something that they're not, and we all know they're not that person. You're not that guy. They're not that guy. You're not that guy, and they're just going through the motions just to do enough where they can like survive, I guess. And uh, this is why this team's been in the crapper for as long as we have. This is why we haven't won a Super Bowl in 55 years. This is why we haven't made the playoffs in 13 years. And it's an embarrassment. It's a terribly run organization. I'm going to call them out on it. You're calling them out on it. We've had enough. Fans are spending a lot of money on tickets that are going up. Fans are buying merch. They're changing jerseys.
Again,
Fans are traveling to games or taking flights. I know fans that bought every single flight for every away game, pre-ordered all this stuff, bought their kids things. By the way, the stuff they were buying from Fanatics would take you freaking five weeks to get in, and it would come in and the prints were off. It's another
Fanatics is not having
story.
a good week either with the MLB jersey.
Fanatics' stuff is actually I'm not even gonna say it. Oh yeah, and then when you get Aaron Rodgers, everything is all good, and you want to have one Jets drive, and you want to do hard knocks, and you want to sell us your throwbacks. But then when things go bad, you want to hide, which to me is what sissies do, is what cowards do. So let's see what you do this year. And I'm going to be right here and I'm going to be talking about it with Ryan every Thursday night, or today is Friday night because we couldn't do yesterday, but we'll be here. We'll be talking. Prove us wrong. Let's see what you got.
It'll be fascinating to watch, Frankie. And like I said, it all starts with the offseason. The combine's the first sign of it right now. And we'll see how the free agency starts playing out. We'll be reacting to that as the moves are being made, man. And I'm looking forward to breaking that all down with you, as always.
My man, you're the best, dude.
You're the best, Frankie. Thank you, man.